From we are born as a little baby, we have our different phases and stages that we go through. We have the stage where we are very dependent on our parents and we just want to go everywhere with them. If they move, we cry, and we just want to be around them all the time. And then you start to become a little bit more independent and want to do everything by yourself. You don't want to be bothered, the likes, right? But ever since you start trying to create your own style, your own sense of purpose, which is when you go through that separation stage, you start to unintentionally and sometimes intentionally seek validation from other people. Whether it's putting on your clothes and asking somebody if this looks good, or fixing your hair and asking somebody if it looks good, all of it is validation. And so today I want to talk about this idea that the life you want may require you to disappoint people, because since we're in this rebuilding phase of our lives, we've done it the way of seeking validation and trying to please everybody. And if you're like me, that did not lead to the ultimate outcome that you anticipated. So now you're in the stage where you're choosing the life that feels good for you, which I talked about in my previous video, and that may require you to disappoint some people. Before you think though, this is not saying to cause disruption to your entire life. I'm talking about this premise of why other people's expectation can shape our lives. Because we get up and we just want to make everybody happy. Generally, you care about somebody, you want to make sure that they are okay, and you consider them in every single avenue of your life. And sometimes, and this is not necessarily coming from a bad place. The expectation is not coming from a bad place, nor the intent is coming from a bad place. But for example, when we look at parents who've had family businesses or who've had career paths and they want their kids to go down those career paths or take up those avenues, they have an expectation of what their child is going to do, and the child also has an expectation of how they want to show support to their parents, vice versa, and that shapes the way that we go about life in general. But now it comes around to this part where you have a choice to make, whether you're going to go through with just ensuring that everybody else is okay except you, or you have to take that course into your hand to decide that you are going to just have to make some choices that you are okay with, even if nobody else supports them. And this is the part where we say no and we automatically think that makes us a bad person. And it does not. It does not make you a bad person. Of course, there has to be within reason. You're not just being irrational and not considering your responsibilities and not considering people that are directly affected by your actions. But I mean in the context where saying no to choices, saying no to certain responsibilities that you just know don't fall into the scope of life that you imagine for yourself. That does not make you a bad person. That actually makes you a way more intentional person. And if you really are a person who is genuine, it will show in the long run that these choices were not just to harm people, but for everybody else's, mostly for the good of most people. So this part where we feel guilty for choosing differently. Back to the example where I gave previously, where there is a career path that everybody in the family is choosing, and one child, the black sheep or whatever you want to call it, decides to do something different, and the guilt that comes from that, feeling like you're disappointing people just because you made a different choice that is not the popular opinion, that is a natural feeling. And I think everybody who has gone down this path of choosing something that feels in alignment with themselves has to settle with that guilt, right? And convert it, because ultimately the guilt is just because you can feel that you're disappointing somebody else, or they've made it blatantly clear that you're disappointing them based on your actions or lack of, right? And it's just a natural emotion that comes just because we genuinely want to make people happy. But the guilt, just like every other emotion, is just an emotion that will pass, and it's not something that we're going to sit in. I've often talked about the fact that shame does not produce this result, and a part of shame comes from guilt. You feel guilty about something, then you start to experience shame, and it makes you hide. It doesn't make you want to do anything good about the situation. And in this case, I would assume that you are just not going to go with the decision because of so much guilt that comes with it. And so freeing yourself from that guilt is one of the first steps in the process of rebuilding a life that actually fits you. And you just have to know that it comes with the territory of choosing something different than everybody else. I'm going through this analogy. It's quite funny how, as I was describing the stages of an infant, where we go from ultimately dependent to independent and back to dependent, we somehow find ourselves back in that dependent phase, and we want the people closest to us to support our decisions. And most importantly, well, I don't know if it's most importantly, but alongside support, very importantly, is understand our decisions. And many people may not, because everybody that is around us is looking out for our best interest. I would hope that's true. The people that care are looking out for our best interest, let me say it that way. And in that regards, they want to guide you to make decisions that they can see, that they can understand. And so when we come up with a decision that is ours, that we've thought through, that we've given a lot of thought, that we've, come to terms with, but it's not a popular decision, it may just not be understood the same way as we would anticipate by the people around us. And this is not in a case to say that because we are trying to do our own thing means we shouldn't try to clearly explain what these decisions are, especially to the people that are directly impacted by the decisions that we make. But it's this premise that even if it's not understood by anybody else, and it's something that's not going to bring harm to you or anybody that is directly connected to those decisions, then this is not something to be discouraged by, or this is not something to allow discouragement to deter you from, because discouragement, just like guilt, just like shame, is an emotion that comes. We just don't have to sit in it and allow it to ruin our choices and our, how we move forward in life. So yes, not every decision is going to be understood by everybody else, and sometimes, as lonely as that feels, we just have to know that this is for the greater good. This is something that's going to get us to the next level, and this is something that ultimately will bring tenfold returns, even though no, it's not being understood. And go ahead with it anyway. I touched on this a little bit, or majority. I touched on this a while ago, which is learning to live with being misunderstood. I honestly feel like this is a category of my life where I just sit in for a very long time. I've always tried to explain better, to say it well, to say it better, to make sure that it lands. And for most of my young teenage life, or even to now in many cases, there's just this daunting feeling of feeling like nobody really understands you. Not in a way where you're just trying to be understood ultimately, but in a way where you just think you explain everything down to the T and it's just still not coming off the way that you envision it inside, and so forth. And this is something that I personally have just had to make peace with. I will explain myself if it's beneficial for the moving forward of the decision, but ultimately otherwise I am just not going to get caught up in this over explaining, because sometimes people do misunderstood, but not everybody wants to understand. And if somebody does not want to understand, there's nothing you can explain that is going to make them understand you. But for the people who are actually willing to understand you, they just don't understand in that moment, those are people that you can be more lenient with. But learning to live with being misunderstood is something that is a natural part of rebuilding your life and redefining your life to your decisions, because it's just not possible where everybody is going to understand you the same way that you intend to be understood. And that's just a part of it. Where I started this video, the life you want may require you to disappoint people, and sometimes that person is yourself, because as I said in one of my previous videos, you may think that this is something that you want, this is the way that you want things to go, and it just may not go that way. Or you may discover that you have other interests, you want to try different things, and or you put in all the work and it just never worked out. But whatever the way, whatever version of this you fit in, you just have to ensure that the process is yours, that you are not allowing guilt, nor shame, nor disappointed, nor the lack of understanding to deter you from the ultimate life that you truly desire. With that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was informative in some way, shape, or form. And if it was, please consider giving me a like and share this video with anybody who could benefit. If you are new here, welcome. Thank you for joining the channel. If you're not new, thank you for watching the videos and for sticking around. I really appreciate y'all. And also follow me on all social media platforms at Khrista-Lee. That's Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And comment below and let me know if you are settling into this disappointment phase, or which one of these emotions actually are the easiest for you to settle with. Is it the guilt, the misunderstanding, or the disappointment? I'd love to know below. All right, I'll see you in my next video. Let's go make some mistakes. Bye.